My husband is Beth Fullam. I have a 17-year-old daughter, Bridget, who has Dravet syndrome. And I have a 29-year-old stepdaughter, Caitlin, who now lives in California. So Bridget's first seizure was when she was 14 months old, so later than a lot of the kids. She had had a little cold, not sleeping well. I had given her some cold medicine, and I was alone in November, not long from this date, about 16 years ago. She wasn't looking right, and there was some kind of mommy instinct because she just wasn't right, and I wasn't sure what was going on with her. She was not seizing per se, but I waited a little bit, and I called my sister, who was a mother of 3, and she's like, oh, maybe she's just tired, who knows. But then she started doing little jerks, and I got panicky, and I put her in her car seat and started heading to the ER. And I looked in my mirror, and I could see that her whole body was involved in doing something, and she was not breathing, and she was blue, and I pulled over and dialed 911. And police got there fairly quickly, and they took one look at her, grabbed her out of the car, grabbed me out of the car, put us both in the police car, wouldn't even wait for an ambulance, and off we went to the ER. And I saw her again about 5 hours later on life support. Doctors were coming in and out, but she had passed, and they had resuscitated her and asked us if it was okay to put her on life support and transfer her from that hospital to a Trauma 1 hospital where she would have pediatrics, ICU full-time. So she was in a coma for 5 days, and then we pulled her out of the coma, started doing well on her own, and about a week later brought her home on phenobarbital. So we didn't find out it was Dravet syndrome right away. She was not diagnosed until she was 8. It was a long, hard journey. We went through several doctors. I do believe very, very fully in divine intervention. Bridget, before she had her first seizure, I had engaged some great friends to be her godparents. They were both neuroscientists, one out of Albert Einstein in the Bronx, and the other worked at Roche, so knew all the medications and pharmaceuticals. So I got very lucky that I had him to introduce me to other physicians. So we went from physician to physician because I knew there was more to it. I hated the fact we were putting her on tons of drugs and not getting anywhere. And she was more a zombie, and her babyhood was, she was not progressing with her milestones. There were a lot of things that were going on that were just not right to me. And after fighting and fighting, we got connected with a doctor in New Jersey, and he asked why we hadn't done the blood test. And I'm like, what blood test? And he explained it all to us, and he explained it to us what de novo meant, that you didn't actually have to have seizures in your background to have a child with a seizure disorder and have it genetically based. We got the call when we were back in the hospital, having started her on Vimpat and having more status type seizures, and he just said, I've got to find out, have you gotten your genetic tests back yet? And we hadn't, but we were actually hoping to pinpoint the area the seizures were coming from so we could do a resection. And we found out during that hospital stay that that was not going to be possible. We are very, very blessed. We're one of the luckier families, I believe, in the sense that her seizures have been very well controlled. Since we got her diagnosed, I pushed to get her on the Epidiolex trial. And from the trial, we started to go monotherapy, only on Epidiolex. And for about 5.5 to 6 years, we were very well controlled. In fact, 5 of those years we had no seizures. And then last year she had 3 right around school starting. And unfortunately this year, they started again in August. And we've had 5 from August to end of October. She loves school. And she's mainstreamed. She's in honors classes this year as a junior in high school. She loves horseback riding. She loves her friends. She has a lot of social impairment. So having friends for her is huge. And being with them means everything to her. She loves boating, being on the water, being with her dog. And she's pretty much an only child, so she also likes her solitude. She likes to have some time on her own. We have had her diagnosed on the spectrum. She has developed ways of coping from being bullied for many years to withdraw or to lash out. She struggles socially quite a bit. But I've found kids who are as quirky and who get along. Somehow they manage to get along and to do well. But really we struggle a lot with behaviors. We tried her on ADHD meds before she was diagnosed, but at that point we were on 3 different Dravet medications, and we couldn't add an ADHD med because somehow they were interacting and it wasn't working for her. So she struggled a lot in her younger days. After diagnosis and on Epidiolex, we've been able to put her on Vyvanse, which is an ADHD drug, and she's done remarkably well. So she can now focus, sit still, have better attention in school, and her grades have gone up. People tell you, you only get what you can handle. I don't believe that. I think you learn to handle what you're given. And I think there's going to be constant struggles to get her into a place where she can be more independent.
What would you tell a family just starting on this journey?
That they're not alone. That there are people out there who have been through this and are there for them. And the second, not to be afraid to ask any questions. No question is dumb. So I've learned so much from the Dravet Syndrome Foundation. It's been wonderful.